Hey John, it's Rod. How's it going, man? So this is video 2. We haven't really talked since video 1 got posted. I did send the link just to you, which I thought was interesting. I sent it to one person. I didn't tell anyone about it. As far as I know, I don't really have any people that are subscribing to me, but suddenly out of nowhere I got 14 views, which is strange. 14 people watched this. I know that I know a couple of the people that watched it. I don't know who the other people were. Very strange. I know that you were one. I know one other. But apparently there were 12 other people that watched the video. So hello, people who are watching the video out there. Nice to see you. Hi, how's it going? But most importantly, you didn't respond. Now, you might have had a good reason not to respond. That reason being that last week, in between when I recorded the last video and in between today, was your birthday. So, happy birthday. My wife was able to make the festivities. I was not able to make the festivities. I'm glad you had a good time. I hope everything went well. You are now officially still older. I'm old. So, whatever. You're old. It's not a big deal. I'm also old, so no problems there. So, we haven't really talked since the video was posted. I hope you liked it. You can see a couple of things. I have a brand new camera that I'm using. It's not a brand new camera, but I got my charger, so I'm using a better camera. Got a little bit of lighting kind of going on right off screen, right off that you can't see, some movie magic happening. So I think the lighting is good. So what are we going to talk about today? A couple of things. First, obviously in the last week there's been some pretty big news, the Osama bin Laden thing being captured. It's all over the news. I don't want to talk too much about that because it is what it is. I will, however, say there was something that I quoted that I thought was interesting. So the night that it happened, I'm lying in bed, I'm watching the live video feed, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I'm doing all the things, I'm reading the CNN and the MSNBC, and a quote started popping up that I thought was interesting, and I actually posted on my Facebook page. The quote was, "I've never wished a man dead, but I have read some obituaries with great pleasure," and it was attributed to Mark Twain. Only it turns out it's actually not Mark Twain that said that. It was in fact Clarence Darrow who said it. Clarence Darrow is best known as the attorney in the state of Tennessee versus Scopes, which was also informally known as the Scopes Monkey Trial. He was who defended the biology teacher accused of violating the state's Butler Act, which made it unlawful to teach evolution. So it was actually he who said that, not Mark Twain. I felt a little foolish for posting that on Facebook. But I haven't gone back and corrected it because I guess I didn't feel that foolish about it because everybody was doing it. As we've talked about, you have not said what you're going to be telling me to do, what you're going to be teaching me to do. We know that I'm going to be telling you to go read comic books. I haven't done that yet, but I thought, well, maybe I can kind of point you in the right direction. What would I have told you to go read had you responded to last week's video and I had sent you to the store last week to read comic books? Well, that's a question I can actually answer. First, I would have had you go out and read a Marvel comic, Thor #1, Matt Fraction, Oliver Copiel. The reason I would have had you read this is A, it's jumping on point. It is a #1 issue. It's a new series. Thor actually has 2 series now. Secondly, you know, the Thor movie comes out this week. You gotta be reading some Thor. Thirdly, the big reason, I'm a big fan of Matt Fraction, and I have not read a lot of his stuff on Thor, but what I really like is that he's bringing back, in this issue, the Silver Surfer, and Galactus. Galactus is one of my favorite villains. It's very cosmic, very awesome. I'm digging it. I thought it was a great issue. I think you should pick it up and read it. If we don't talk before then, grab that issue. It's really fun to read. Secondly, I would have told you to pick up Scott Snyder's writing Detective Comics number 876. Why would I have told you to read this? Well, really, I would have been happy with you going back and getting the first issue that this Scott Snyder guy started writing on Batman, because the Batman that he is writing is awesome. Why is it awesome? Well, he's the writer who's picked up a Vertigo series is what he's really mainly known for. American Vampire, which was co-worked with Stephen King. The first story arc featured Stephen King helping write part of the story, but he's been writing the rest of it. That's kind of his Vertigo title. But this Batman Detective Comics is actually where, in my opinion, he really shines on the superhero front. Pretty simply, he's doing true detective stories. Batman, in my opinion, in the comic books doesn't do enough detective work, and it's also kind of co-featuring Jim Gordon. Jim Gordon's crazy it's also co-created. It's also got another through line here where it features Jim Gordon, the detective, the commissioner Gordon of Batman fame, and kind of dealing with his family and some crazy kids that he's got and kind of what's going on with that. It's a detective story. It's a lot of fun. And it's got fantastic art by Jacques, who is known. He's a French, I believe, a French artist who was famous for doing a book called The Losers, which was turned into a pretty crappy movie, but is a great comic book. Great art, great writing, Batman being a detective, which I know sounds crazy. You think, oh, Batman's always a detective. But if you read comic books, very rarely these days is he a detective. More often than not, he's just a superhero. So that's been a lot of fun. This week I would have probably, almost assuredly, had you pick up The Avengers 12.1. John, that makes no sense to you. What is 12.1? Well, Marvel's doing this thing called the Point One Initiative, and what it is they're putting in these comics in between other issues. Between 12 and 13 comes 12.1, and it's supposed to be a jumping on point for new readers, for you to run out, pick up this book, not only know what's going on with the title, but also kind of explain who characters are and explain where the next story arc is going. The Avengers right now is being written by Brian Michael Bendis. It's drawn by Brian Hitch, who you might know as the artist for The Authority, which was the Warren Ellis book that Wildstorm did that was really awesome. Bendis is famous for Ultimate Spider-Man. He's famous for basically being the #1 writer at Marvel right now, and has his hands in a lot of stuff. He's been working behind the scenes on a lot of the movies that have been coming out, Thor, Captain America, a little bit on, there's a new Spider-Man cartoon that's about to come out, things like that. So he's a pretty influential writer. He's probably the most influential writer at Marvel right now. And this is kind of his jumping on point for the Avengers. You could pick it up and read what's going on. It's a fun little story. It's kind of a well, it's not a one and done. It's fairly self-contained, but it does, like most great comics, have a little teaser at the end that leads you into the next issue, hoping that you'll go back and pick it up. I'd be interested in knowing what you thought. There were some things I had problems with. Some of the characters, they didn't really explain who they were, though there were a ton of characters in the book, so that's kind of the reason. So I guess you learn a little bit about those. All right, but last is the big one. This is probably the biggest comic to come out last week because it was all over the news, and that is Action Comics number 900. Now, here's the thing. I was actually not going to talk about this. I was not going to have you go pick it up. I would not have had you pick it up because Action Comics 900 is the last in an ongoing story arc that's been going on. It's been written by Paul Cornell. It's been drawn by Pete Woods. Paul Cornell is a new British writer for mainstream Marvel and DC Comics. He's really tearing it up. He's probably my favorite writer at DC Comics right now. And I wasn't going to have you pick it up because it's the final issue of an ongoing story arc. You would have been pretty lost. Issue 900 has lots of other backup stories, though, and was in the news because one of the backup stories features Superman renouncing his U.S. citizenship, and that, of course, has got the internet going crazy. People have been going nuts about that. So I will comment a little bit on that. I think that story actually is pretty interesting. I have issues. As a standalone story, I think it's great. As something to give to somebody who's never really read Superman or doesn't regularly read the comics, I think it's kind of an interesting story. It has some interesting ideas in it. Him announcing he's going to renounce his U.S. citizenship. So on that regards, I think it's kind of interesting. Okay, let me nerd out here. As a comic nerd, it makes no sense because first of all, he's got a split personality or a secret identity. So if he's Superman and he renounces his citizenship, does that also mean that Clark Kent has renounced his citizenship? It's a little strange gray area there. Secondly, I don't think that it's something they're going to follow up with. It did not feel like a part of the regular storyline. It felt like a one-shot. The guy who wrote it is actually a TV writer, and I won't go into detail on all that, but he's not someone that's regularly writing a Superman comic. So I really got the impression that it's not something they're going to follow up on. It felt kind of like a throwaway thing. Oh, let's do this because it's a neat idea. It doesn't feel like something they would ever follow up with. So it feels a little strange. It's a great issue. I thought there was really a lot of fun in here, a lot of stuff worth checking out, but you know, probably not something for new readers. Maybe if you want to speculate and buy it because you think you'll be able to sell it for a lot on eBay, go for it, but I wouldn't even recommend that because it's not. There's a billion of them out there. So that's probably what I would have pointed you towards comic book-wise this week. What would you have pointed me towards? What would have gone on? What are we going to do next, John, is the question. So you said you were going to see me on Sunday. We didn't do Sunday. Not a big deal. Maybe we should email. maybe you should, you know, stop being such a lazy bum and get back to me. Tell me what we're going to do next. You can see I'm going to all this effort, and what have you done, sir? What have you done? So that's it for me this week. I will talk to you next week, whether you talk to me or not. I'm going to keep doing this until we get our own page. I have no idea what I'm going to talk about next week, so we'll keep that a surprise for now. And to the other 12 people out there who I don't know that are watching, hello, how's it going? I'm Rod. Leave a comment down in the thing down there and say hey and tell me who you are and why you're watching this video, and maybe tell John he should get up off his butt, because this would probably be a lot more interesting if John were responding to me instead of me just talking to him and you other 12 people. So I'll talk to you later. That's it. Bye.